Thank you for joining us today for our seminar in the Journey to Science series at Onondaga Community College. This seminar is sponsored by the Bridges to Baccalaureate grant. Today, we are welcoming several speakers. We are welcoming graduate students from the biology department at Syracuse University, and they're going to share with us some of the challenges and successes they've had getting to graduate school and then being in graduate school. As you're watching, if you have any questions, there's a Q&A button at the top. You can submit your questions at any time. They can be general questions, or if you have a question for a specific student, go ahead and include that in your question. And leading the discussion today will be one of the graduate students. Her name is Sarah, and she studies whales. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in and for having us today. So I am a second-year graduate student at Syracuse University, and I'm really excited today to sort of serve as your disembodied voice as we get going, just to keep our conversation moving across our 4 different graduate student panelists today. So we're going to hear a diverse set of stories and backgrounds, and we're all graduate students of diverse years, research interests, and backgrounds. So we're really excited to talk to you today. With that in mind, I'd love to invite Peter, one of our panelists, to start us off with a brief intro. So we'll get a bit deeper into some of these topics, but for now, Peter, if you could start us off. Who are you? Where you're from? What are you doing in grad school now? And why are you here?
Yeah, thank you. I am Peter. I'm actually from Syracuse, New York. I graduated from Fowler High School. I went to the Navy for 4 years, got out, didn't really know what I wanted to do. Went to OCC. I majored in math and science, then finished at Binghamton University, and now I am at Syracuse University in the biology department. I study more along the lines of biochemistry and biophysics. I work with proteins for anyone who has taken biology. And I decided to enroll into the PhD program, and I'm currently finishing up my 2nd year. I'm about to be a 3rd year graduate student, which means I have qualifying exams coming up that we might get to. I chose biochemistry and biophysics because I like to look at things isolated and find out the very particulars of how things work physically rather than at a systems level. And thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Peter. Audrey, if you don't mind going next, same kind of question. Let us know who you are.
Sure. My name is Audrey Wood. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a 2nd-year grad student. I did start in the PhD program, but now I'm doing the master's. And I study astrocytes, which are a type of cell in the brain. I'm looking at how arsenic affects these cells. So really, my research is kind of cellular, molecular at that level, using cell cultures. I kind of got interested in that because I was always really interested from early high school, intro bio. I was like, how does the cell cycle work at I wanted to know more about, I felt like I'd never learned enough about mechanisms. I wanted to know how things worked at a teeny tiny level. So that's kind of how I got into the research topic I got. And I came to Syracuse just having a really good feeling during my my interview here. It was recommended to me by someone who, I went to Georgia Tech for my undergrad degree, and it was recommended by one of my professors there, hey, apply there. And I just had a really good feeling about it, and here we are.
Awesome, great, nice to meet you, Audrey. Just Portia, same questions to you. Who are you? Why are you here?
Thank you, Sarah. So I'm Portia, and I'm an international student. I came from Bangladesh, and before coming here, I was actually a teacher for undergrads. I was teaching microbiology, and my love for microbiology sort of started when I first landed in high school. I had a very small unit where I was studying microbiology, and then it felt really interesting, how microbes are so diverse, and you have all sorts of applications and everything. So I after that, so what I did is I started my undergrad where I was studying microbes, then I did a master's on that, and then I started teaching microbiology. So it was like all nice and fun, but I also needed for my promotion and for my self-improvement, because I was also like sort of supervising undergrad research. So I needed to improve myself so that I could teach my students, and also I needed it for my promotion. So all of that like sort of made me come here for a PhD, and I'm a fourth year PhD student right now. And I am basically like, so I work mainly with bacteria, and my techniques are mostly molecular, so I'm a microbiologist / molecular biologist. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Clementine, finish us off. Who are you? Where you're from? Why are you here?
Hi there. My name is Clementine Harvey. I'm so glad to be here. My field is, of course, biology, but more like with a focus kind of on neuroscience. And I really like kind of neuroplasticity and behavior. Why I like those things, I really like, I just am fascinated by the brain's and nervous system's ability to change and shape and adapt based on experiences or, exposure to either intrinsic or extrinsic factors. Yeah, I'm originally from southeastern Pennsylvania, a place called Downingtown. I did my undergrad in a very small college called Ursinus College. I did a lot of biology and neuroscience research there. Yes, I did research as an undergrad, and later we'll find that that does help you get to grad school. I'm currently a first-year graduate student, so I'm still rotating, and the lab that I'm rotating in currently has a lot to do with cortical development or development of the brain, the cortices in the brain, in mice. So yeah, glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much to all four of you. So hopefully you were able to pick up a little bit, just kind of the sheer diversity we have just amongst the four people we have talking today. And we heard a little bit of difference between the type of programs that all of our panelists are in. So some are in PhD programs, some are in master's programs. So I guess starting in that same order, Peter, could you tell us a little bit about the specifics of your PhD program? What's the difference between that and a master's? How long are you expecting to be here? And just sort of why you chose that for yourself, please.
Yeah, thanks. So when you get to grad school, you'll have already decided, hopefully, if you want to pursue one or the other, and that's always up to change. It's flexible, but you want to know why. So a master's program is going to be shorter than a PhD. I'm in a PhD program right now. I can expect to be at Syracuse University for a total of 5 years. Some of them will last longer depending on what field you're in. In the humanities, you can expect to be in grad school for at least 7 years. And even in the hard sciences like biology, it can extend from 5 to 7 years. I've actually met someone at a different college who has been in her PhD program for 10 years. So this is very project dependent. And the reason why you would want to pursue a degree that takes a longer time rather than another graduate degree that doesn't, mostly has to do with the depth that you get into in your project. So as a PhD student, you're going to be extremely independent by the end of your project, and you're going to write this dissertation that has multiple chapters. You'll also have to do that for a master's, but you'll just be more in depth, and you will be an expert in your field and an authority on certain topics.
Great, thanks, Peter. And so Audrey, you mentioned you have a little bit of a different situation. So you're currently a master's student, but you did start off in a PhD program. Do you mind telling us a little bit about why you made that switch and how that might change sort of what you're going to get out of grad school or what you're looking to do in the end?
Yeah, sure. So I kind of decided around about around this time last year that I wanted to move into the master's program. I was kind of considering that I was doing my PhD rotations, which Clementine is doing right now, which if you're not aware of what the rotations are in cellular molecular developmental biology, you often rotate between labs to kind of get a feel for the techniques, what working with a different advisor or primary investigator is like, and you do those for around 10 weeks. So I had done one my first semester, done one my second semester, and I really liked my the second lab that I rotated in. I wanted to stay in that, but I realized the PhD option was probably not for me because I realized I did not want to go into kind of academia like as my career, or even into like industry, like working, maybe for like a pharmaceutical company or for a government contractor or something like that. If I had gone through the PhD for what, I wanted to do, it wouldn't really be worth it. I'd be kind of overqualified for something if I just want to be like a research scientist or something. But what I really want to probably move into is actually going into like a medical or clinical field after this. So going to my plan right now is to go into PT school. So really just finishing my master's degree, getting that really good relationship with my advisor, having like a nice research project done, having that on my resume, and then kind of changing tracks is kind of what my case is.
Thank you so much for sharing. And Trust Portrait, you told us a little bit sort of your impetus or the reason you decided to come for your PhD. So what are you hoping that participating in a PhD program will sort of allow you to do once you complete that program? Why was that PhD so necessary, please?
Thank you, Sarah. So I think what really drove me to PhD is the fact that, so like I just mentioned, that I was supervising a lot of undergrad research. So it kind of felt like, oh, so I only have a limited research experience. So like from my master's, I had 1 year of research experience. And then from my undergrad, I only had like a couple of months. So for me, it was like, oh, so I'm trying to, if I have to really do a good job at this, I have to have like my own experiences in research. And then also another important factor as a teacher is that like you would want to bring in grants. And that is, I think, one of the skills you would really learn when you're doing a PhD. You learn a lot of skills, like you learn a mentorship kind of like skills, and then you learn how to write a lot of papers, you learn how to write a grant, you do a lot of other activities like apart from research as well. So all of that kind of helps when you want to be a teacher, when you want to stick to academia. And in my case, I eventually want to stick to academia. So I think it's very important. And also in my field, I would say that you wouldn't really necessarily get a job as a professor in a university without a PhD, or even if you get it, you're not getting promoted after a while. So for me, it was the case, so it all affected. And also my interest and love for microbiology, because I was sticking to it for such a long time because I really enjoyed this topic, all of it.
Great, thank you so much. And Clementine, why is your PhD program so important for you to have started for what you want to hopefully do afterwards?
That's a really good question. I mean, I kind of like, even going into this program, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted, but I really, really like research, and I really like the questions. I really like delving into projects just to no end. And I think a PhD program will provide me with the depth that I want. And when you think about it looking forward, because, I'm still not 100% sure what I want to do. I just really like research. I think a PhD just opens so many doors. I mean, a master's does too, but a PhD, I mean, you're an absolute expert in your field. So you can go into science writing, you can go into industry, you can go into academia. I will say, based on my experiences thus far, I've only been here for like a semester and a half, but I am teaching as well to help pay for my degree and to get a stipend. I really do like teaching and interacting with students. I like facilitating people's learning. So, I mean, it's possible that maybe there's a future in academia for me. So, I mean, I think that that's something that I will figure out. But for me, right now it's the destination. Not the destination, sorry. It's more the journey than the destination.
Great, thank you so much. And so also we heard some diversity before in sort of that time between finishing our undergraduate degrees and working or coming straight into our graduate programs. I know for myself, Peter, and Trust Portia, we had a number of years off where we were working or engaging in other things before choosing to start our graduate degrees. So from that time, understanding it was different for us all, what were some of those major challenges that you may have faced that you think ultimately decided now is when I want to go to grad school, now is the right time? And what did that time in between look like for you? Peter, why not start us off, please?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. So like I said, I graduated from Fowler High School and joined the Navy immediately out of high school. So I spent 4 years in the military, and I did not even know that I wanted to go to college, let alone to graduate school. When I got out, I was working at a warehouse and started a math and science degree at OCC, kind of taking all of the classes that I possibly could just to find out what I liked. And I started to like science courses. I didn't know what science yet, but I was good at it, and I enjoyed the homework. I enjoyed reading. Eventually, I was able to get into a research project with Dr. Feeney. We did a research project tracking deer on campus, and there's actually a poster on the 3rd floor of Ferrante Hall still, I think, that shows the data we collected. And I had a good time organizing it and learned that interpreting data is kind of hard. And from there, I asked about more research opportunities and got the chance to get an internship at the NIH, which is the National Institutes of Health. They have a program just for community college students, and you spend 10 weeks during the summer being mentored by a scientist there who has a PhD. It's not like any other experience I've had before. You know, this person who is an expert in their field is just there watching over your shoulder as you do these things, explaining everything to you, making sure that you're having a good time. After that, my foot was in the door at the NIH, and the next summer I went back again, even though I was no longer in community college. I continued on to Binghamton, and I enjoyed biochemistry, so I majored in biochemistry. I did not get into a lab at Binghamton, so I wasn't able to get more research experience during my time in undergrad, but those 2 summer internships that I had set me up for success because, number one, it let me know that I liked research. I didn't know if I wanted to go to medical school, if I wanted to get a PhD, what I wanted to do, if I wanted to just stop after undergrad. But that experience let me know that I enjoyed research. And like Clementine, I enjoy asking questions to no end and pursuing data. And if you get an answer, that's cool. So that is what allowed me to decide, okay, I want to start grad school now. You know, I felt like I was starting off a little bit late after going in the military. I'm 29 years old right now, and older than most of the people who are in my cohort. But that's why I wanted to start immediately. I didn't want to do a post-bac, which is where you can go do research after an undergrad. I just wanted to start, and so I joined right in as a PhD. There are multiple routes you can take. You can get your master's first and then go to a PhD program if you want, but you can also just join a PhD program if you have research experience already. I think something else that I failed to mention last time is that we do get paid as graduate students. Anywhere most places that you go, you'll be able to get a TA-ship where you'll be a teaching assistant and you'll assist a professor in teaching a class or a lab, and they give you a pretty good stipend. We get around $30,000 a year almost at Syracuse University. So you're getting a graduate degree, which is going to be worth a lot of money after you get out, and you're getting paid the whole time, a livable wage the entire time you're in. Now, some universities do differentiate between PhD and master's students with the amount of stipend that you get. Not all of them do, but there are some, so that's something that you'll want to look at if you want to take one of the routes. But just know that you're not going to have to get a second job in graduate school. And you can also get a fellowship, which will pay you without having to do TA stuff, so then you can focus on research. Yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Peter. Just Portia, with your also kind of background of taking a number of years off before starting graduate school, do you have anything else to add about why you wanted to start right then and sort of what challenges you may have faced that finally pushed you into that program?
So for me, it was, since being an international student itself is presents itself as a challenge when you're trying to move into a different country. And then a lot of the universities wouldn't want to take you unless they know that, oh, so I can make this student actually work on my project and I'm going to get something out of this. So they would try to look at, so you'll have to have some sort of very good research credentials before you can join a PhD if you are an international student, versus I do not know, but I kind of feel like it's different for domestic students. So for me, it was, if I have to get into research or if I have to start my PhD, I'll have to show them that I have sufficient research experience. And for that, they would usually look for published papers. So that was one of the things that was challenging for me, right after. So sometimes it happens to students that they do their master's research, but they don't have a paper published out of that. And for me, it was at a point, it was getting published at that point, and that sort of increased the value of my CV, and that helped. So that was one of the challenges. If I did not have that, I don't think I would be able to come here, because they're flying you miles and miles away. And so they would want to make sure that you have something in you that can help their project. So I think that was the most challenging part for me. So I sort of had to make sure I did that. And then I also, so I tried to actually apply and immediately come in after my master's, but my paper wasn't ready yet. I haven't submitted it yet and all of that. So it was a nice breathing time, I would say, having that time to, make myself more eligible for coming for a PhD as an international student. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you so much. So Audrey, kind of going off of that same theme of being an eligible graduate student, can you tell us for yourself what that application process was like? What components did you have to pull together to file your application with the school, and just what that process looked like for you?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I took a gap year after my undergrad to take the time to apply. And what you have to do, so less places are requiring the GRE nowadays, but you may need to take the GRE, which is kind of like the SAT, but for grad school. That can take a while. You might take it twice. So you have to do that. You have to get together letters of recommendation from, I want to say it's usually 2 to 4 that you have. You have to write personal statement, maybe a diversity statement for places, or they might have other particular questions, but almost always it'll be a general personal statement that's usually pretty open-ended that they give you. So I have a family member who's in academia, and I was able to have run some of my personal statements and all of that by them, which was great. You do also have to have a resume or CV to be able to apply. I think that was kind of all the components I remember. And I want to say I applied to, I think it was 7 schools. It was 6 or 7 schools that I applied to. And I got interviews at 3 of those. And the interview process, usually these places will, if it's far enough away that you have to fly, the school will fly you out and reimburse you for those costs. They'll kind of house you in a nearby hotel if needed. Even if you are close by, they'll pay you back for gas. Hopefully they should. And you stay for a weekend where you get together with, a bunch of other applicants who are being interviewed. You would have lots of different little events. You get to go see the campus. You get interviewed by, 3, 4, something like that of the professors who are there. And so it's like, it's like a very long-winded interview process that you're exhausted by the end of. And often it's like on very close together weekends. I know in my case, I had 2 that were conflicting, so I actually had to reschedule my Syracuse interview. So it's, it kind of ends up being a lot. You do have to devote a lot of time to put together all those materials, make sure they're submission worthy. Having good letters of recommendation, I would say especially, is really important. That's probably why I got into grad school at all, was on that basis.
Thanks so much, Audrey. I know for myself, it was also a rough process, so I'm impressed by your level of detail. You could remember it. I sort of made it, blocked it off from my memory, so thanks for that.
A lot of it is, yeah, a lot of it is blocked out.
Clementine, and being sort of the newest addition to the graduate department, you went through that process most recently from all of us here. Did you have a similar experience, and ultimately what made you pick Syracuse? What were some of those important factors for yourself that let you know that this was the right school and program for you?
Yeah, so I mean, like, I guess my kind of research experiments started when I was like in high school, and then went all throughout college, but then, when I was doing academic and industrial research, just all different branches of research, mostly relating to either biology or chemistry. But I think I hit a point. I took a gap, like a gap 2 years after college, because like I was just like, I really like the idea of grad school. I really like the idea of research and biology, and that's just something I really like doing. So I took that time to go and embark on this kind of journey where I explored these different graduate programs that I was interested in. I reached out to some of the faculty whose project I was interested in. And some of them were kind enough to even speak to me about their project and take time out of their day to talk to me. Like I would go around and travel to some parts of the U.S. and talk to some of these faculty members, or sometimes I would do Zoom with them. They were kind enough to talk to me, which was really nice. I think that's another thing, is making those connections and making that, making that network. And I think what brought me to to Syracuse was I met with 2 professors in particular who literally spent about 3 hours talking to me. And, from that impression, I just really got, from that experience, I just got the impression that they were so invested in prospective graduate students, which is great, and they're probably even more invested in graduate students, and that's just the attitude that I get here. Not just from the people that I met with, but also just some of the people I talked to coming here. It's so important in graduate school, to have not only the subject that you're interested in and want to invest the time and the energy in, and I'd say, for example, if you are paying to go to grad school, the money in as well, but it's the topic is only half the battle. I mean, the other side of the battle is having the support system that you need, academically, emotionally, people around you who are rooting for you, rather than just using you as grad labor, for lack of a better way of saying it. But yeah, I just think having that support system is essential.
Absolutely. I mean, as we heard from other panelists, you're going to be involved in this program from anywhere from 2 to maybe even 10 years. So you want to be somewhere where you as a human are supported, because only that way will you be the most successful and really figure out what you do want to do as you continue to move forward. So jumping back to Peter, understanding we all work on different things, different research areas, and a day in the life looks different for us all. But this week, what does a day in the life look like for you? And overall, do you have a favorite part of being a graduate student, and what's the most frustrating part of being a graduate student, please?
Yeah, So an actual day in my life, I try to get up early so I can get any life habits that I want out of the way before school actually starts. Because once work starts, it kind of seems like it's not going to end, and things are just piling up on you throughout the day sometimes. So I'll wake up and I'll go exercise or eat breakfast, and then get to lab between 8 or 9 in the morning. Then I'll look at the plan that I've made for the day beforehand and see any experiments that I have planned for the day, see any data analysis that I have left over to do, see any meetings I have. There's a lot of planning in grad school. So I basically write everything down, get my priorities set out, and then try to start experiments as soon as I can, because sometimes you can walk away from them. Not all the time, but sometimes you can walk away from them, but preparing them takes a little while. So I'll go and get all my test tubes and throw chemicals in them and do a little voodoo. Then basically just trying to stay focused throughout the day on each task. And I always have my little assignment notebook with me to make sure that I am on task and focused. And if I ever find myself kind of staring off out of the window or something, I'll grab my notebook really quick and go back and say, okay, what am I doing? What do I need to get done for the day? Then I think that has actually presented the toughest challenge for me is time management, because like I said, you're living a life at the same time you're in grad school, and grad school is an enormous amount of work. No matter how you cut it, you have to do a lot of work. Becoming efficient is something that you'll need to do. Making sure that you can do a few things at the same time by understanding where the downtime is in between each of those tasks, understanding what you can walk away from and come back to and just get right back into the groove of things, versus something that you have to just do and get done from start to finish. So time management has been the most frustrating and difficult part of grad school. The best part of grad school is when your work pays off and you get that data that you've been looking for, and it shows something really cool, and you go to your PI and you go, look at this, and they go, oh wow, that's awesome, there's 50 other things that we could do now. So the reward comes in having your work pay off, and you know that you've done it the right way, because that's how science works, right? If you don't do it the right way, you're not going to see anything. You're going to see inconsistent results. You're going to see something that's so out of left field that you start to question, like, did I really do this right? And then you go back and you see that you didn't do it right. It's going to happen all the time. So there's a lot of failure. But as long as you're learning from your mistakes, the best part of grad school is the reward of having your work pay off. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much, Peter. Audrey, I know you yourself are teaching this semester on top of your own research and other course requirements. Can you tell us a little bit about your day in the life? And same question, favorite part of being a graduate student, most frustrating part of being a graduate student?
Yeah, so I'm a teaching assistant right now for an upper level lab course. It's been this is the first time that I've had to be a teaching assistant for this particular course. For the previous 3 semesters, I'd always been doing anatomy and physiology 1 or 2, so I had kind of really gotten into the groove of that. If you can get a good assignment where like you just stick with the same thing semester after semester, it streamlines it so much. So it can always be hard teaching a new course. There's probably, I say for this course, I do like probably 5 to 10 hours of grading a week, or just general, like, putting together emails, meetings with students if they want to have like a one-on-one meeting with me. That takes, about 10 hours out of my week. So kind of, that's not part of like my, work day, like my 9 to 5 kind of day, which is rarely 9 to 5. That always is something I go home and grade or something. Usually meetings I have during the day, but and then I have to spend time actually teaching the lab. So I have one lab section where it's like a 4-hour block on Thursdays for me, where I have, you know, about 17 students, and I'm basically teaching like the whole lab to them. I have to distribute all their materials. I have to explain the background to them. I have to answer their questions. I collect all of their work. So that's kind of, you know, so that's going to be a 15 to 20 hour a week commitment for being a TA. Hopefully it should not be any more than 20 hours a week, because that's what we're being paid for, is, you know, it's on a part-time basis. As far as my, well, yeah, I guess let's start with my least favorite, or like the hardest part of grad school. I have to agree with Peter being the time management aspect. I've never been a great time manager / scheduler, and it's definitely something you need to get really well in the habit of doing. Like, definitely at the end of the day, if you make a list for yourself of this is what I want to get accomplished tomorrow, it's going to kind of keep you on track for like, okay, I need to get in, you know, early tomorrow, and it helps you get that done. That for me is still a work in progress of learning new time management techniques. And yeah, you can definitely learn places where like, okay, I can stop this experiment here. I can kind of put this in the freezer and I can kind of come back to it. Or there are some things where you're not going to be able to be flexible with it. There was a lab I was working in, a developmental lab, and the organisms, these zebrafish, they need to have something done before 9 a.m. every day. It's just is the way that they are. And so you have to build your schedule around things like that sometimes. It can also be frustrating. A big part of grad school is just, I'll say, is troubleshooting. Is a huge part of grad school. If you don't enjoy troubleshooting, it'll be probably hard to enjoy grad school. It's like, if you don't enjoy the process of like, oh man, this thing went wrong, how can I make it go right? Or how can I change gears and still get a result, or, you know, change my focus or something. You have to be really, really perseverant, I guess is the word, with that. The best part, yeah, is when you get good feedback on something like, wow, that was a great presentation you put together. Like, I really, you know, that was so interesting. Or we got this cool result. That can be like really inspiring, and that can really help you like for the next, like, fuel you for the next, you know, few weeks through the more troubleshooting that you have to do.
Thank you so much, Audrey, and just keeping it going. Trust Portia, favorite part of being a graduate student, most frustrating part of being a graduate student for you?
So I think I would agree with most things that Audrey and Peter just said, like this time management and all of that is very difficult. And I think also like the fact that sometimes you already have a set of, like you have already set up a schedule, but like in middle of that, you get something else on top of that. And then you have to like squeeze it in the very last moment. That happens a lot, especially if you're working, but a lot of different committees and other things within the department. Like as a grad student, it's not just that you are only responsible for research. You are not just only responsible for being a teaching assistant or anything, but there are a lot of other responsibilities that we take up. And often it's voluntary, but even then, like you would enjoy it, but there are sometimes it might, you know, like affect your inner peace of like how you're getting your things done and everything. And also, and for me, I think the best part, or the part that I enjoy the most, is doing the bench work. I really enjoy doing all these little steps that I do for my experiments, no matter whether I get a result that I expected, but it still is I think it's super fun. So for me, that's pretty, that's the best reward for me.
Thank you much for sharing. And so just conscious of time, we also wanted to encourage any questions from those of you listening. If there's anything you're curious about or we can help answer, please fire away as well.
There's a question from the audience, and it is, what is a skill that you think is most needed to be a successful graduate student?
I know Audrey and Peter, you just touched a little bit on time management. From any of our panelists, any thoughts you'd like to share?
could go. I guess
Okay,
just
thanks,
having,
Clementine.
yeah, sure. So I guess like just sheer motivation, I guess just sheer motivation and determination, you know, as well as some creativity and imagination. I think it was Einstein who once said, intelligence and knowledge are finite, or I guess rather intelligence is finite, but imagination encompasses everything. Creativity encompasses all things and opens so many doors for us, or something along those lines. So, I mean, yes, I'm sure that all of you people are intelligent, but having that creativity and being able to, that's going to carry you through grad school as far as like learning how to problem solve, learning different ways of interpreting things, interpreting data, learning or kind of, thinking how to design your new experiments or what have you, based on, trying to solve whatever question or whatever problem that you're seeking to solve or answer, and that may even yield more questions and more problems that you're seeking to solve. So I guess that, certainly motivation, that's, unsurprisingly, to get you through either anywhere from 2 years of a master's program or like a 5 to 7 year PhD program, that's going to get you through, as well as having, a healthy dose of creativity. And I think that's, a lot of people are surprised by that. I think scientists, creativity is reserved for the humanities or whatever, but scientists are probably amongst the most creative people that you will ever meet, and we have to be as part of our job.
I think I would also just love to add the ability to be flexible. So like all of our panelists said today, not everything is going to go well. You're going to have experiments that don't work. You might spend weeks or months working on a particular type of method, only to find out that it's not going to be successful and you have to start again. You're not going to get home at 5 o'clock every day, and you just really, the ability to sort of be able to take a breath, take things as they come and take things one day at a time, I think is a really important skill that will allow you to be successful in graduate school, as well as life, but mostly graduate school as you move forward. Any other questions that have come in for our panelists?
Yeah, there's a question. You have now the luxury of hindsight. You are in graduate school. You've gotten through your undergrad. You've made some choices. If you could sit down with one of our students at OCC, and these would be first or second year college students, a lot of whom don't really know where they're headed yet. But let's say you're sitting down with a student who's interested in science, and they kind of want to go to a 4-year school, finish up their science degree, and then maybe grad school. What is a piece of advice you have for them? If you could sit down with them right now, what would you tell them over a cup of socially distanced coffee?
To just start that off for myself, I would say take advantage of any opportunity that you have before you sign up for one of those programs. So if you have the chance to sort of volunteer or do an internship or have this conversation with someone else, just try to get an idea of if this is something you'd actually like to do. You won't know if you like it or if you don't like it until you try it. So take any opportunity to sort of get a glimpse into what your future or your job may look like in that particular field you're interested in. Any panelists have anything else to add? Other thoughts?
Yeah.
Thanks, Audrey.
I was going to say, I would definitely, in my case, I wish I had done more undergrad research, or had gone and worked more between undergrad and grad school. I think that's really important to kind of know this is what research looks like, and doing it for more than say a semester, where you kind of aren't necessarily going to get a whole lot accomplished, where you don't know that feeling yet of things are going wrong. Your persistence has not been tested yet. Do enough research or something adjacent to that where those qualities are going to be tested, of needing to troubleshoot, getting frustrated with something, get experience with that aspect that you're going to have to deal with in grad school.
Yeah, I think all of those things that were just said, but also make sure that you're finding what you're passionate about, not just through internships and research experience, but things that you actually enjoy that are fun, you know, and you're not just doing this just to get something checked off in a box, but you're doing it because you love to do it. That is going to make life much easier, just in general. If you're doing something because you think you have to do it, or that you should do it, or that you've already been doing it for this long, so you might as well keep going, that might not work out well. So I think be very exploratory during college and try to get your hands on everything that you can, and whatever feels best, just go in that direction as hard as you can. You know, no matter what you do, hard work is going to pay off eventually. So, yeah.
I think so. Like talking to a lot of people, like as many grad students or other people who had grad life experiences, helps a lot. Like trying to figure out what it is going to be like, you know, just being prepared. That is super important. Like if the more you talk to people who had this experience, the better your idea and the better clarity you're going to get about a grad life. So I think that is also super important. And also making as many connections as possible, because recommendations count a lot, and a lot of other things. So
Yeah, I'm pretty much just echoing what everybody else said. But I would even add to that by being further, like, as far as making connections goes, I mean, I found that it was really helpful for me to talk to faculty members about their research so that I can find my research interests and also make connections with people in different universities, and you know, see if they're the kind of atmospheres that I would like to work in. Because that's also something that you want to look into, is having not only a topic of interest, but a good lab atmosphere to work in.
Great, thank you so much. And so just again, conscious of time and your need to get to class or your next meeting, I think that's everything we have on our end, unless there's any last questions we can help answer.
That is it for questions. I wanted to thank all of you for taking the time to be here. As you've mentioned, time management is crucial in graduate school, and I know how valuable this hour out of your day has been, stepping away from your experiments, stepping away from your work. So thank you very, very much, Clementine, Peter, Audrey, Trisportia, and Sarah, for taking the time to be here with us today and sharing your experience of getting to graduate school and being in graduate school with our students. And thank you to our audience for joining us today. Goodbye.